Okay, let's unpack this. I want you to just, for a second, imagine a resume.
Okay.
But this isn't a normal resume. This is a list of accomplishments that just shouldn't be physically possible for one human being.
Right.
We're talking about a man who walked the entire length of the Indian subcontinent, from the tropical South all the way to the Himalayas.
And not just once.
Not once, but at least twice. And we need to remember, he wasn't taking a flight or a train. He walked.
Which is, that's a staggering feat of endurance in itself, especially considering the terrain and the conditions in the 8th century.
Exactly. But while he was doing that, he also wrote over 300 dense, rigorous philosophical texts.
Hundreds.
He established 4 major institutions that have been running completely uninterrupted for over 1,000 years.
Oh.
And on top of all that, he's pretty much single-handedly credited with saving the entire Vedic tradition, what we now think of as Hinduism, from total extinction.
It's a staggering list. It sounds like the work of, 3 lifetimes? At least.
Yeah. Here's the kicker, though. He did it all. And he died at the age of 32.
32. It is the ultimate paradox of time and impact. Adi Shankaracharya.
That's who we are diving into today. Adi Shankaracharya.
Yeah.
And I want to set the ground rules for this deep dive right up front.
Okay.
If you look him up online, you get a lot of, let's call it devotional material. You get miracles, you get halos, you see pictures of him floating in the air.
Which is fine, for believers. But it completely obscures the actual man, the strategist, the philosopher.
Right. Our mission today is different. We want to move past the fluff. We're not just doing a biography. We're trying to extract what I'm calling an operating system for the mind.
I like that.
Because when you strip away the mythology, what Shankara left behind is a rigorous, logical framework for resilience, for dealing with life.
Absolutely. His philosophy, Advaita Vedanta, or non-duality, isn't just some abstract metaphysics for scholars. It's a practical toolkit.
A toolkit for what?
It addresses the fundamental human problem. Suffering. Why do we suffer? Why are we anxious? And, how do we hack our own psychology to stop it?
So before we get into the weeds of his life story, let's just preview the core concept, the central thesis. It's all summed up in one famous Sanskrit line, Brahma Satyam Jagan Mithya.
And you have to add the second half, Jivo Brahmaiva Napara.
Okay, break that down for us. What's the headline here? What does that actually mean?
It translates roughly to, Brahman, the absolute reality alone, is real. The world is mithya, an appearance, or maybe illusion is the common translation.
Okay, the world is an illusion. That's a big claim.
A huge claim. And the second part is just as big. And the individual self, the jiva, is none other than Brahman.
Which, to be honest, sounds terrifyingly abstract. The world is an illusion. I'm touching this desk right now. It feels pretty real.
Of course it does.
If I don't pay my mortgage, the bank's reaction is going to feel very, very real.
And Shankara would completely agree with you. This is the nuance that we absolutely have to get right. He isn't saying the world doesn't exist.
He's not.
No, he's saying there's a difference between what is temporarily real, like your mortgage or your body, and what is permanently, eternally real.
So it's more a question of categorization.
It's a question of value. He argues that almost all our psychological suffering comes from one single mistake. We invest permanent value in temporary things.
We treat the temporary as if it's permanent.
Exactly. It's an error in processing reality. And he offers the code to fix that bug.
I love that framing. Okay, so let's rewind. Let's look at the man who wrote the code. And immediately we hit a speed bump. What do you call the chronological crisis?
We do. And it's not a small bump. It's a massive canyon. There's a huge, huge discrepancy about when Shankara actually lived. It's often called the two Shankaras problem.
On one side, you have the tradition,
Yeah.
the mathas, the monasteries he founded.
Yeah.
They have date, right?
They do. And these institutions, they keep incredible records. They have these unbroken lineages of teachers pontiff to disciple stretching back, they claim, for 2,500 years.
Wow.
So if you follow their internal records, Shankara lived around 509 BCE.
509 BCE. That puts him back with who? The Buddha.
It does. 509 BCE to 477 BCE. That would make him a contemporary of the Buddha, or living just after him. Think about that. It would mean he predates Jesus, the Roman Empire, the entire classical age as we know it.
Okay, but then you have the modern historians, the academics, and they have a very different date.
A very different date. The academic consensus places him much, much later. We're talking around 788 CE to 820 CE.
So the 8th century AD.
Right.
Why is there such a massive gap? 1,000 years is a pretty big margin of error.
It comes down to the text, the internal evidence. In his writings, Shankara is fiercely debating other philosophers. He's not just talking into a vacuum.
Right, he's responding to specific arguments.
Precisely. And specifically, he quotes and refutes a very famous Buddhist logician named Dharmakirti. Now, the thing is, we have solid, independent historical evidence that Dharmakirti lived in the 7th century CE.
And you can't really quote a guy who hasn't been born yet.
Exactly. Unless Shankara was a time traveler, the traditional 509 BCE date is, well, it's very hard to reconcile with the textual evidence.
So for the purpose of this deep dive, we're going with the 8th century timeline.
We are. Not to disrespect the tradition, but because it sets the context for his mission so much more clearly. It explains why he was so aggressive. He was leading a counter-reformation.
Let's talk about that context,
Yeah.
because I think a lot of us have this sort of romanticized view of ancient India. We imagine everyone sitting under banyan trees, peacefully meditating, everything's Om.
It was the exact opposite. The 8th century was a time of complete intellectual chaos. The Vedic tradition, the precursor to modern Hinduism, was fragmented and, frankly, decaying.
The house was on fire.
The house was on fire, yes. And the problem was a deep split in the philosophy. On one side, you had a school called the Mimamsakas. These were the ritualists.
What did they believe?
They believed the Vedas, the holy books, were essentially a rule book for magic.
Magic.
Transactional magic. Fire rituals, called yashna. They had this belief that if you just lit the fire, poured the ghee, and chanted the Sanskrit mantra with the exact correct intonation, you got a result.
Like a cosmic vending machine.
Precisely. Put in the coin, get the candy, you get a sun, you get rain for your crops, you get a ticket to heaven after you die.
So it was all about the external action.
Purely mechanical. They didn't care about philosophy. They didn't really care about God in a devotional sense. And they certainly didn't care about enlightenment or self-knowledge. It was just a set of instructions.
Okay, so that's one camp. And on the other side?
On the other side, you had the Buddhists and the Jains. And they were winning.
Winning how?
They had the intellectual high ground, they had sophisticated logic, they had rigorous ethics, and they had a path to liberation that didn't involve hiring expensive priests and setting fires. So the masses, especially the thinkers, were flocking to them.
So Shankara steps into this world where the Hindus are obsessed with what he saw as empty rituals, and all the smart kids were becoming Buddhists.
That was his monumental challenge. He had to prove that the Vedas weren't just a manual for rituals. He had to prove they were a source of jnana, of profound knowledge.
He had to make the old way cool again.
He had to make it intellectually respectable again. He had to take the sophisticated logic of the Buddhists and actually use it to defeat them, to reestablish the Upanishads as the supreme authority on reality.
That's a high-pressure job for anyone, let alone a kid. Which brings us to his origin story. It starts in a small village, Kaladi, way down in Kerala.
That's right. Born to a pious couple, Sivaguru and Aryamba, but the trauma hits very early. His father dies when Shankara is just a very young child.
And we really need to contextualize this. In 8th century India, being a widow and a fatherless son wasn't just, a sad thing. It was dangerous.
It was an incredibly vulnerable position, both socially and financially. They were basically on the edge of the community with no real protection.
So he didn't grow up in a secure, protected bubble.
Quite the opposite. I think this is absolutely crucial. He saw the fragility and the impermanence of life from day one. This wasn't a theory for him.
And you think this is what fueled his vairagya?
I do. Vairagya is a key term. It's often translated as dispassion, but I prefer a different translation. Psychological distance.
What's it different?
Dispassion sounds cold, like you don't care. Psychological distance is the clear-eyed realization that this world is unstable. I cannot rely on it for my ultimate safety or happiness. It's a strategic withdrawal of emotional investment.
And that intense early experience leads directly to the crocodile incident. This is really the most cinematic moment of his childhood. He's 8 years old.
8 years old. The story goes that he's bailing in the local river, the Purna, and a crocodile grabs his leg.
Just grabs him.
Grabs him and starts dragging him under.
I mean, that's pure nightmare fuel.
Absolute nightmare. He screams out to his mother, Aryamba, who's on the riverbank, watching in horror. Now remember, he had been begging her for permission to become a monk, a sannyasi.
And she refused.
Of course. He was her only son, her only support. That's the social contract. He's supposed to take care of her in her old age.
So he's being dragged under by a crocodile, and what does he do?
He yells, "Mother, I'm going to die. Give me permission to take sannyasa right now. Let me at least die as a monk."
Wait, that's a thing. You can just declare yourself a monk at the moment of death.
It is. It's a very specific, almost legalistic concept called a pat sannyasa.
Papat sannyasa.
Renunciation taken at the moment of calamity or death. The idea is that if you die as a monk, having renounced the world, your spiritual status in the next life is vastly elevated. So the rules are relaxed when death is absolutely imminent.
So his mother, watching her son being eaten alive, screams yes.
She grants him permission, and in that very instant, the story goes, the crocodile lets go of his leg and swims away.
Now, okay, whether we believe a reptile negotiated a monastic contract or not, what does this tell us about the boy, psychologically?
It tells us he was utterly extraordinary. He used his own impending violent death as leverage.
He's negotiating.
He's negotiating for his spiritual freedom. Think about the focus that requires at age 8. He wasn't just panicking about the pain or the fear, he was executing a plan. It shows he was already psychologically prepared to sever his attachment to his own body completely.
So he survives, but the deal is done. He's technically a monk now, which means he has to leave.
He has to leave. An 8-year-old boy leaving his widowed mother behind to walk north alone. It's just a heart-wrenching image.
He promises to come back for her funeral.
He does, which was technically against monastic rules, but he makes that promise and then he goes.
He's looking for a guru, and he finds one, Govinda Bhagavat Pada, on the banks of the Narmada River.
And this meeting, this first encounter, really sets the tone for everything that follows. The teacher sees this young boy and asks him the simple standard question, "Who are you?"
Standard question.
A normal 8-year-old says, "I'm Shankara from Kaladi, son of Aryamba." But Shankara doesn't. He recites a complex 10-verse poem he composed on the spot, the Dasa Shloki.
And what does it say?
It says, "I am neither the earth, nor water, nor fire, nor air, nor space. I am not the senses, I am not the mind, I am the remnant of pure consciousness."
Wow. So at 8 years old, he's basically declaring war on the whole concept of conventional identity.
That's a great way to put it. He's saying, I am not this package of flesh and thoughts that you see before you. I am the observer of the package.
And the teacher's reaction.
Govinda Bhagavapada takes him in immediately. He knows this is no ordinary child. And Shankara then spends the next 3 or 4 years in what I can only describe as yogic boot camp.
It wasn't just sitting around and getting blessed.
Not at all. He mastered the Yoga Sutras, the Brahma Sutras, all the major Upanishads. This was rigorous academic and spiritual training. He was building the intellectual weaponry he would need for the battles to come.
But before the great conquest, he needed a reality check. And this is my favorite story in the whole stack, the incident in Kashi, in Varanasi. Because it shows he wasn't perfect.
Yes. This is the encounter with the Chandala.
Explain who a Chandala was.
In the rigid caste hierarchy of the time, a Chandala was an outcast, an untouchable, someone considered so ritually impure that even their shadow was polluting.
So Shankara is now a young, brilliant teacher. He's got disciples. He's in Varanasi, the holiest city in India.
He's just taken a purifying bath in holy river Ganges. He feels pure, he feels holy. He's walking with his disciples down a very narrow lane.
And coming the other way is a Chandala, this supposed untouchable walking with 4 dogs.
And Shankara's disciples, they act like bodyguards. They start shouting, move away, get out of the path.
They don't want this impure person to pollute their master.
Exactly. But the Chandala doesn't move. He stands his ground. He looks the great Shankara directly in the eye.
And he speaks.
And he asks a question that just cuts through centuries of hypocrisy. He says, you tell me to move, but who should move? Should this body, made of food, move away from that body, also made of food? They're the same material. Or, he says, should the self move away from the self?
Oof. That's a direct hit.
It's a nuclear strike, he continues. Is the sun reflected in the pure water of the Ganges different from the sun reflected in a dirty puddle on the street? If Brahman, the self, is omnipresent, how can you have a clean person and a dirty person?
He used Shankara's own philosophy to dismantle Shankara's own behavior.
It was a devastating, perfect critique. In that moment, Shankara realized his non-duality was purely intellectual. It was in his head, but his deep social conditioning was still running the show. His body still flinched.
What was Shankara's reaction?
Whoa.
Most gurus, their ego would kick in. They'd get defensive.
He collapsed. The stories say he prostrated flat on the ground in front of the Chandala, he touched his feet, and he composed a 5-verse poem, the Manisha Panchakam, right there on the spot.
And what's the core message of that poem?
The refrain is, One who has the firm conviction that he is the one pure consciousness that shines in all bodies, whether he be a Brahmin or an outcast. He is my guru.
That is such a massive takeaway for us. Realization isn't just about reading books or having clever ideas. It's about breaking that deep, ingrained social programming.
Exactly. It was the moment the philosophy moved from his head to his heart. It became real for him.
So he's ready. He's been tested. Now begins the Digvijaya, the conquest of the four quarters. And he didn't stay in a cave and meditate. He went on the offensive.
He was a brilliant strategist. He knew that to change the culture, you don't argue with the average person on the street. You have to target the influencers.
You go after the leaders of the opposing schools.
Precisely. And his first Meiji target was Kumari Labata, the undisputed leader of those ritualists, the Mimamsakas we talked about earlier.
But when he finds him, it's a pretty gruesome scene.
It is. He finds Bada sitting in a pile of slow-burning rice husks. He's self-immolating.
Why on earth would he do that?
It was a profound act of penance. Bada was a man of rigid conscience. In his youth, to learn the arguments of the Buddhists so he could defeat them, he had disguised himself and studied under a Buddhist teacher.
He went undercover.
He did. But later, he came to believe this was a terrible sin, a betrayal of the sacred student-teacher trust. His conscience couldn't bear it, so this slow, agonizing fire was his self-prescribed punishment.
And Shankara arrives and says, "Wait, let me save you. Let's debate."
And Bada says, "It's too late for me. The fire is already consuming me. But if you want a real fight, a true test of your philosophy, go find my greatest student, Mandana Misra. He is the best scholar in all of India. If you defeat him, you will have defeated our entire school of thought."
So Shankara goes to find Mandana Misra. This is the philosophical Super Bowl of 8th century India.
It really is. And the contrast couldn't have been more stark. Mandana Misra was the establishment. He was wealthy, older, a renowned householder living in a palace-like home.
And Shankara.
Shankara was a teenager, a penniless wandering monk, owning nothing but a water pot and a staff.
The stakes of the debate were incredibly high.
Extremely. The wager was this. If Shankara loses, he has to give up his monkhood, get married, and become a householder.
And if Mandana loses?
If Mandana loses, he has to give up all his wealth, leave his family, and become Shankara's disciple, a monk.
Winner takes all. And who was the judge? The referee for this epic debate?
Mandana's own wife, Upaya Farati, who was considered a scholar and a genius in her own right, possibly an incarnation of the goddess of learning, Saraswati.
So the debate goes on for weeks. And how did she judge it?
It's a brilliant story. She didn't want to sit and listen to every single logical point, so she placed a fresh flower garland around the neck of both men.
Yeah.
And she said, the one whose garland wilts first loses.
It's a physiological lie detector.
Exactly. When you're losing a complex argument, when your certainty is shaken, you get stressed, you get agitated, your body heat rises, you sweat, and the flowers on your garland will wilt.
And Mandana's garland began to wilt.
It did. Shankara's relentless logic, that rituals produce temporary results, but only knowledge of the self gives permanent liberation, was winning. But just as Shankara was about to be declared the victor, the wife, the judge, steps in.
Upaya Farati interrupts.
She says, "Wait, you have defeated my husband, but according to our scriptures, the wife is the other half of the husband. You have only defeated half of him. Now you must debate me."
And she's not going to debate him on the Vedas. She throws a massive curveball.
A total blindside. She challenges him on the Kama Shastra.
The science of love.
Yeah.
The erotic arts.
Yes, sex, love, relationships, the dynamics between men and women.
And Shankara, who has been a celibate monk since he was 8 years old.
He knows nothing. He is completely, totally stumped. It's the one area of human experience he has no knowledge of.
So what does he do? He can't just forfeit.
He asks for a month-long recess. He says, "Give me 1 month to study this subject, and then I will return to answer your questions." And this leads to the most controversial and fantastical part of the story, the Parakaya Pravesha.
Which means entering another's body.
Yes. The traditional account says Shankara used his yogic powers to find a king, King Amaruka, who had just died while out hunting in the forest.
So he finds a fresh corpse.
He does. He tells his disciples to hide his own body in a cave and guard it carefully. Then he uses his meditative power to transfer his consciousness out of his body and into the body of the dead king.
So the king, who everyone thought was dead, just wakes up.
The king wakes up, the whole kingdom rejoices, they think it's a miracle. And Shankara, now living inside the king's body, goes back to the palace. And for 1 month, he lives the life of a king.
A very different life from a monk.
He experiences the harem, the politics, the sensory pleasures, the complex emotional dynamics of marriage and ruling a kingdom. He learns everything he needs to know about the Kamashastra firsthand.
Now, okay, some listeners might be thinking, all right, that's a nice fairy tale. But let's look at the philosophy. Why is this story here? What's the point it's trying to make?
It's making a crucial point about the philosophy of Advaita. A true, non-dual realization demands sarvajñatva, all-knowingness.
You have to know everything.
You cannot truly transcend the world by simply ignoring it or being ignorant of it. You can't renounce what you don't fully understand. If Shankara had just said, oh, sex and relationships are bad without any experience, that's not renunciation, that's just fear or ignorance.
So you have to graduate, you can't just drop out.
Precisely. To truly transcend something, you have to understand it completely, see its limitations, and then let it go from a place of wisdom, not aversion.
So he returns, re-enters his own body, and wins the debate.
He answers all of Upaya Parati's questions flawlessly, and Mandana Mishra, true to his word, becomes his disciple. He's renamed Sureshwaracharya and eventually becomes the head of one of the great monasteries.
Speaking of the monasteries, the mathas, let's look at his organizational genius. Because he didn't just win debates and walk away, he built lasting infrastructure.
This is maybe his most underrated achievement. He established 4 major monasteries, or mathas, in the 4 corners of India: Sringeri in the south, Kuri in the east, Dwaraka in the west, and Badranath, or Joshimath, in the high Himalayas in the north.
This wasn't just a random placement, was it?
Not at all. It was strategically brilliant. First, he assigned one of the 4 Vedas to each matha to preserve. Sringeri was in charge of the Yajur Veda, Puri the Rig Veda, and so on. It was a distributed data storage system for the most sacred texts.
A backup system, so if the north gets invaded and all the libraries are burned.
The south has the backup copy. If the west suffers a famine and the scholarly tradition dies out, the east holds the lineage. It was a plan that ensured the survival of the complete Vedic corpus through the 1,000 years of invasions and chaos that followed. It was nothing short of brilliant disaster recovery planning.
Okay, let's pivot. We've covered the man and the history. Now, I really want to get into the operating system, the philosophy itself, because you promised us a toolkit for psychological resilience.
Right. Let's talk about the physics of illusion. The core mechanism Shankara identifies for our suffering is a concept called atyasa.
Atyasa, what does that mean?
It means superimposition or error. And he uses a timeless, brilliant analogy to explain it. The analogy of the rope and the snake.
Okay, walk us through that mechanism.
Imagine you're walking down a path at twilight. It's getting dark, you can't see clearly. You look down and you see a long, coiled shape on the ground. Immediately, your brain pattern matches. Snake?
Then I freak out. My body reacts instantly.
Instantly. Your heart starts racing, you start sweating, you jump back, adrenaline floods your system. The fear is 100% real, the physiological reaction is 100% real. But then your friend comes along and shines a flashlight on the shape.
And it's just a piece of old rope.
It's just a rope. The snake was never ever there. It was a projection of your mind, a mistaken identity superimposed onto the rope. But, and this is the absolute key, the illusion of the snake needed the reality of the rope to exist. The illusion needs a real substrate to be projected upon.
Okay, I get the metaphor.
Yeah.
But I'm not scared of ropes in my daily life. I'm scared of losing my job. I'm scared of public speaking. I'm anxious about my health.
Shankara says it is the exact same mechanism, without exception. The rope is the self, the pure, changeless, silent consciousness that you are. The snake is your ego identity, your job title, your body image, your political beliefs, your bank account.
So when my boss criticizes my work and I feel like I'm being destroyed, what's happening?
You are superimposing the snake of my professional identity onto the rope of I am. You suffer because you fear the death of the snake. You think that if the snake gets attacked, you bleed.
But the rope is never actually affected by the illusion of the snake.
The rope is never affected. The self doesn't get a bad performance review. The self doesn't age or get sick. The pain comes from the mistaken identity.
But wait a minute. This leads to the classic objection, the one everyone always brings up. If the world is a snake, if it's all just an illusion, why do I need to eat? Why should I look both ways before crossing the street? If that bus is just an illusion, let it hit me.
This is where Shankar proves he's a profound realist, not a fantasist. He solves this problem brilliantly by introducing the 3 levels of reality. This is the patch that fixes all the bugs in that line of thinking.
Okay, lay them out for us. What are the 3 levels?
Level 1 is pratibhasika satyam. This is subjective or illusory reality. This is the reality of your dreams or hallucinations.
So if I dream of a tiger chasing me.
The dream tiger is absolutely real to you in the dream, but it has zero reality for me sleeping in the next room. It's a private reality. Once you wake up, it's gone.
Okay. Private subjective reality. What's level 2?
Level 2 is Vyavaharika Satyam. This is the empirical, transactional, waking state reality. This is the shared world of gravity, laws, hunger, taxes, and buses.
The world we all live and operate in.
And Shankara is very, very strict here. He says, as long as you perceive yourself to be an individual body-mind in this Vyavaharika world, its rules apply to you 100%. In this level, the bus is real and it will kill you. In this level, you must follow dharma, ethics. You have to be a good person.
So you can't just say, I am Brahman, to get out of paying your taxes.
You absolutely cannot. He would say that's a dangerous delusion. As long as you feel hunger, the food is real. As long as you identify with the body, the bus is real.
Got it. And the 3rd level?
Level 3 is Paramarthika Satyam. This is absolute reality. This is Brahman. From this ultimate standpoint, the waking world and the dream world are both seen as appearances, as not ultimately real, but, and this is the big warning label, you only get to live and operate from this level when you have fully and directly realized it.
So until I'm enlightened, I look both ways before crossing the street.
You look both ways, you pay your mortgage, and you're kind to your neighbor. Don't fake it till you make it. Spiritual bypassing is one of the biggest traps.
I really like that. It respects the reality of our daily struggle. Now, you mentioned a concept earlier, Panchakarnaman, the physics of matter. This sounded like a very practical way to deconstruct our attachment to the body.
It is. It's a mental exercise. We are so attached to our bodies. We think, this is me, this is mine. Shankara says, let's just analyze it scientifically. He says the body is just a compound, a mixture of the 5 great elements: space, air, fire, water, and earth.
Okay. Standard ancient physics.
But look at it closely. Your breath, that's just borrowed air. You inhale it from the atmosphere, your body uses it for a few seconds. You exhale it, you give it back. You don't own the air in your lungs.
True, it's just passing through.
Your body heat, that's borrowed fire. Your metabolism, your blood, your saliva, your fluids, that's just borrowed water. Your bones, your muscles, your tissues, that's just borrowed earth. It's just the food that you ate reconfigured.
So I'm basically a walking, talking rental car made of recycled parts.
You are a temporary vortex of borrowed, recycled elements. Shankara's goal is to make you see deeply that you don't own any of it. It's all on loan from the universe.
And when you die,
the loan is recalled. The water goes back to the water, the earth goes back to the earth, the air to the air. The assembly is dismantled.
And the you, who I really am.
The you is the tenant, the consciousness that was animating the rental car. And if you realize you are the tenant and not the car, the fear of the car eventually breaking down, which is death, loses its sting.
That's surprisingly comforting. It takes so much pressure off. I'm just renting this.
It's the ultimate freedom.
So how do we actually do this? We can't just think about ropes and snakes all day.
Yeah.
Shankara had a syllabus, right? A how-to guide.
He did. And he was ruthless about the prerequisites. He laid out the Tahana Chatushtaya, the 4 qualifications for the spiritual seeker. He basically said, if you don't have these 4 qualities, don't even bother opening the book. You won't get it. You'll just misunderstand it.
Okay, he's putting up a velvet rope. What's on the list?
First is viveka, discrimination. This is the sharp intellectual ability to constantly sort your experiences into 2 bins, permanent and temporary.
So my consciousness is permanent, my new car is temporary.
Exactly. You have to train your mind to do that automatically. Second is vairagya, that psychological distance we talked about.
So can I enjoy the coffee without being depressed if the coffee shop is closed?
That's a perfect modern example. Can you engage with the world, enjoy it, love people, but without that desperate clinging addiction to them for your own happiness?
That's a high bar. What's third?
Shatsampati. The 6 treasures, or 6 forms of mental discipline, it includes things like focus and faith, but the really big one is a quality called titiksha.
Titiksha, what does that mean?
Forbearance. The ability to endure the pairs of opposites, heat and cold, pleasure and pain, praise and insult, without complaining and without seeking revenge.
Without complaining. That might be the hardest one on the whole list.
It's about developing mental toughness, a non-reactive mind. If your mind is constantly being thrown around by every little discomfort, oh, it's too hot in here, the chair is hard, that person looked at me funny, you can't possibly do the deep work of self-inquiry. You need a Teflon mind.
And the 4th and final qualification?
Mumukshutva. This means a burning, all-consuming desire for liberation. Shankara uses a powerful image. He says, you need to want freedom like a man whose hair is on fire wants to find a pond.
An emergency, not a hobby.
Exactly. Most of us, we want freedom like we want a snack. We kind of want it, but we also want to finish this season on Netflix. And we also want that promotion at work. It's just one desire among many.
And for Shankara, it has to be the only desire.
It has to be number one with a bullet. That's why he says so few are truly qualified.
Let's talk about one of the specific analytical tools he recommends, the Avasthatraya, the analysis of the 3 states of consciousness. This blew my mind when I first read it, because it completely challenges our default assumption about what is real.
It's pure genius. It is the scientific method applied to consciousness itself. Shankara argues we make a fundamental scientific error by judging reality only from the standpoint of the waking state.
Right. We automatically think being awake is real and dreaming is fake.
But Shankara says, let's be more rigorous. Let's compare them. In your dream, you see a tiger. You are terrified. Your heart races. You sweat. Is the fear real?
Yes, the emotion is definitely real.
Is the tiger real?
No, of course not.
But while you are in the dream, it feels 100% solid, doesn't it? You can touch the dream walls. You can taste the dream food. It's only when you wake up that you negate it and say, oh, that was false.
Okay, I'm with you.
Now, Shankara asks the killer question. How do you know that this waking state isn't just a longer, more consistent dream that you haven't woken up from yet? The waker cancels the dreamer. But what about deep sleep?
In deep, dreamless sleep, there's nothing.
Exactly. The sleeper cancels the waker. In deep sleep, there is no world, no body, no ego, no problems. It's a total blank.
But I still exist in deep sleep. Otherwise, I wouldn't wake up and say, I slept so well. There's a continuity of self.
Exactly. Who is the I that witnessed the nothingness of deep sleep? That is the Turiya. The 4th, the silent witness that is present and unchanged through the waking state, the dreaming state, and the deep sleep state. That witness is the only thing that is continuously real. The states are like movies that come and go, but the screen you remains.
That is the real operating system, learning to identify with the screen, not the movie playing on it.
Yes. And to make this immediately actionable, he gives us the algorithm, the practical tool, Drishya Viveka, the discrimination between the seer and the seen.
Okay, walk us through the algorithm. How does it work?
It's a simple recursive logic gate. Rule 1, the seer is different from the seen. Rule 2, the seer is the subject, the seen is the object.
Got it.
Okay, step 1. My eyes see this cup on the table. The cup is the object, the seen. The eye is the subject, the seer. Therefore, I am not the cup.
Easy enough.
Step 2. Now, my mind is aware that my eyes are getting tired. Now, the eye becomes the object, the seen. The mind is the subject, the seer. Therefore, I am not my eyes.
Okay, still with you.
Step 3. This is the big one. Who watches the mind? Who is aware of the thoughts? Who says, I am feeling anxious or I am feeling happy? There is a witness that is aware of the mind's activity. Therefore, the mind itself is an object, the seen. The witness is the ultimate subject.
So I am not my mind.
You are not your mind. You are the silent, changeless witness of the mind.
And the practical tip here, for something like anxiety, is to treat the anxiety as an object.
Yes, it's a game changer. Instead of getting caught in the thought, I am anxious, you reframe it as, I am aware of a sensation called anxiety. You look at it like a dark cloud passing through the vast open sky. You are the sky. The cloud cannot stain or hurt the sky. It creates immediate psychological distance.
Yeah, it is incredibly powerful.
Yeah.
I want to shift gears slightly to the sources themselves. What did he actually write? And we have to cover the controversies. We promised the unvarnished truth.
He wrote a lot. His philosophical masterpiece is the Brahma Sutra Bhashya. That's the heavy-duty academic refutation of Buddhism and all the other schools. It's brilliant, but very dense.
Not exactly beach reading.
No. For the listener who wants to start somewhere, the book to read is the Vivekachudamani, the Crest Jewel of Discrimination.
That's the practical manual.
It is. It contains that famous 10 men story analogy.
Can you tell that one quickly? It's a great one.
10 men have to cross a dangerous, fast-flowing river. When they get to the other side, they want to make sure everyone survives. So the leader counts everyone. He points 1, 2, 3, 8, 9. He panics. Oh no, we're only 9. Where is the 10th man?
He forgot to count himself.
He forgot to count himself. They all start crying and wailing, thinking one of their friends drowned. Then a wise man walks by and asks what's wrong. The leader explains, we were 10, but now we're only 9. The wise man smiles, counts them all, then grabs the leader's hand and points it directly at the leader's own chest and says, you are the 10th man.
We're looking for happiness and fulfillment everywhere outside of ourselves, forgetting that we are the source of it. We are the 10th man we've been looking for.
That's the core message. Then there's another famous text, Haja Govindam. I call this the hammer text.
Why the hammer?
Because this is Shankara with the gloves off. The story is he saw a very old man on his deathbed, frantically trying to memorize complex rules of Sanskrit grammar to become a great scholar.
Last-minute cramming.
And Shankara just lays into him, "Fool! Worship Govinda! Rules of grammar won't save you when death comes calling." It's a powerful emotional wake-up call that pure intellectualism without devotion and self-inquiry is a useless vanity project.
Okay, let's get into the negative things, the controversies. We promised we would. There's a serious accusation made by later Hindu thinkers that Shankara was a crypto-Buddhist, a Buddhist in disguise.
Karchana Buddha, yes, that was a very serious charge. And if you look at the historical data, you can see why they made it.
Really? There's some truth to it.
Well, look at the evidence. He used Buddhist logic and dialectics, which were the most sophisticated of the time. He established monasteries, the mathas, which was fundamentally a Buddhist institutional model. Hindus didn't really have organized monastic orders like that before him, and his core concept of Maya, of the world as an appearance, is very, very close to the Buddhist concept of shunyata, or emptiness.
So was he just a copycat?
I wouldn't say copycat. I would say he was a strategic genius. He saw that Buddhism had better logic and better organization, so he adopted their methods to defeat their philosophy. He took their framework of emptiness and injected the one thing they denied, the eternal, unchanging self, the Atman. He basically beat them at their own game using their own tools.
Okay, then there's the caste issue. This seems like a huge contradiction. We have the beautiful story of the Chandala, where he bows down to an outcast. But in his formal commentaries,
Specifically the Brahma Sutra Bhashya, he upholds the orthodox ban. He writes explicitly that members of the Shudra caste, the laboring class, are not entitled to study the Vedas.
how do you reconcile those two things? The enlightened saint and the social conservative.
It's a deep conflict. It's the reformer versus the traditionalist in one person. Some scholars argue he was just pragmatically following the legal codes of his time, the Vyavaharika laws we talked about, while holding a different, higher spiritual truth, the Paramarthika. But there's no denying that his formal writings did help to cement that social exclusion for centuries to come.
And what about the accusations of misogyny?
It's a similar issue. In certain texts that are written specifically as guides for young monks, he describes women in very graphic, negative terms, a bag of flesh and bones, things like that.
Yikes, that's hard to hear.
It is. The context, and this isn't an excuse, but it is the context, is that this was a psychological tool meant to induce dispassion in young, celibate men who were struggling with lust. It was shock therapy. But again, you can't deny that those passages contributed to a culture within some monastic traditions that devalued women.
And finally, the violence. We think of these philosophical debates as polite academic affairs. But then you have the story of the Kapalikas.
The Skull Bears. These were a radical, extreme tantric sect who, according to the accounts, engaged in practices like human sacrifice.
And they confront Shankara.
The most famous account is that a Kapalika leader comes to Shankara and demands his head as a sacrifice to their fierce god.
And what does Shankara say?
He says yes.
He just agrees.
He says, if my head, this impermanent object, can be of service to your god, then please take it. It shows his absolute detachment from his own body.
But he doesn't die.
No. His chief disciple, Padmapada, who was a devotee of the fierce man-lion deity Narasimha, flies into a rage. He enters a trance and, according to the story, literally tears the Kapalika limb from limb.
That is action movie level stuff.
It is, and it's a stark reminder that the Digvijaya, this conquest, was not just a series of safe academic seminars, it was a physical and often dangerous clash of civilizations.
Let's bring it all home. We're coming to the end of his very short life. He's only 32. But he has one more major organizational contribution. The Shanmata.
The Six Faiths. At that time, Hinduism was fractured into competing sects. If you worshipped the god Vishnu, you often hated the god Shiva. If you worshipped Ganesha, you fought with the worshippers of the goddess.
It was sectarian warfare.
It was. Shankara created a grand unification. He said, worship your chosen form. Ganesha, Shiva, Vishnu, Surya, Skanda, or the goddess, but understand that these are just 6 different windows, 6 different faces of the one formless ultimate reality, Brahman.
He created the modern Smartism tradition.
Yes. He allowed people to keep their personal devotional religion, but he gave it a unifying, non-dual philosophical structure underneath. It was another act of strategic genius.
And then the end. He
Wow.
walks north to the Himalayas.
To Kedarnath, one of the holiest pilgrimage sites.
Mm.
And the records just say he disappeared. He was last seen walking up the mountain path behind the temple into the snow and was never seen again.
At 32.
At 32.
So before we wrap up, I have to ask about destiny, because if everything is just Brahman and the world is an appearance, it can lead to a kind of fatalism. Why bother trying to change anything? What was Shankara's take on free will versus fate?
This is one of his most empowering teachings. He divides karma, or action, into two types, prarabdha and purushartha.
Okay.
Prarabdha karma is the arrow that has already been shot from the bow. This is your destiny, your genetics, who your parents are, the fact that you were born in this country in this century. You can't change that. He says, accept it completely, don't waste energy fighting it.
That's the fate part.
But purushartha means self-effort. This is the arrow that is still in your hand on the bowstring. You have absolute 100% free will on how you choose to react to the arrow of destiny that hits you.
So I can't choose what happens to me, but I can choose my response.
You have total freedom there. And Shankara is firm. In the spiritual realm, your free will, your purushartha, is always stronger than your destiny. No astrological chart, no predetermined fate can stop you from attaining liberation if you want it badly enough.
I love that. The arrow in your hand.
And this leads directly to a critique of what we might call neo-Advaita today. You see this a lot online on YouTube. Teachers who say, you are already enlightened, there's nothing to do, no effort is needed, just relax.
Shankara would hate that teaching.
He would despise it. He would see it as a corruption. He emphasized sadhana effort, discipline, practice. He walked thousands of miles. He wrote hundreds of texts. He debated for his life. He said that vachika jnana, just lip service knowledge, talking the talk, is a trap that leads to a great fall. You have to do the work to purify the mind first.
That is the ultimate takeaway, isn't it? It's an active operating system, not a passive excuse to do nothing.
Exactly.
So as we close out, give us the final thought, the challenge for the listener. What's one thing they can take away and apply right now?
The challenge is to use the neti algorithm. It's a Sanskrit phrase that means not this, not this.
How do we do it?
You sit quietly for just 2 minutes, and you ask yourself a series of questions. First, am I this body? Well, the body changes, it gets sick, it ages, I'm aware of it. The seer is different from the seen. So, neti, I am not this body. Yeah. Then, am I these emotions? Fear, joy, anger. They come and go like clouds. I can watch them arise and pass away. So, neti, I am not these emotions. Am I these thoughts, this intellect? It shuts down in deep sleep. I'm aware of it when it's working. So, neti, not this.
You just keep subtracting everything that is an object of your perception.
You keep subtracting everything that can be observed. And you ask the final question, what remains? What is left when you negate the body, the mind, the emotions? The one thing you cannot negate is the observer itself, the silent awareness. Stay there. That is the core message of Adi Shankaracharya.
Neti, a simple tool for a very complex world. Thank you. This has been a truly deep dive into a mind that, well, it changed history.
My pleasure. It was great.
And to you listening, try the algorithm. Just for a minute, see what remains. We'll see you in the next deep dive.